Hello, I'm George Gonzalez, and I'm obsessed with making games. Today is Multiplayer Monday, so we're going to talk about multiplayer games. Last week, we talked about debugging. And so today, I want to give you an example of something that I've done and how I went about it. Over the last week, I've been trying to crank a build that could be a okay demo for a rough start of an alpha test. And I'm going to launch it on SideQuest. It's not the prettiest, it has nothing polished, but I think it's enough to kind of get an idea to see if people like this. If they want me to continue to build this out. So it's a proof of concept. And I had to make sure certain things worked. We went over some of the spells, but then when we launched the spells, they didn't work as intended. So the dragon didn't work. I wasn't being networked. The enemies were only firing at the player. And then also when I got the enemy working, the spell wasn't damaging the player. And so I'm going to walk you through what I did so that you can understand how I debug and some of the things that you have to watch out for, or maybe how to think about it differently. And this is a real world example. This is a game I'm working on and something that I needed to test, and I got it fixed. And so let's talk about how I went through it. The first thing is I made a list, right? I knew I was going to go through a debugging session. I said, okay, I'm going to get down. I'm going to fix the dragon first. So we had the dragon bullet. Is still, right now it's in the middle. I'm updating the textures, but I think it's important to, so this dragon, obviously this was the new one that I'm working on. But this is the old one. If I can find it, or if the texture works. Let's see. Oh, because it's not. So if I can't see it now, let me see. Holy cow. Yeah, so it's in here. But now because I see, so like, I'm working on the texture so that you see it appear as it goes. One thing that I'm going to have to do is hide these guys too, because I have this material that hides the object in world space. And I'm going to have to disable these box colliders so that they don't do damage while they're behind the dragon. So as they appear, they'll also turn on. So that's something I have to work on, but it's not a network issue, or it could be, depending on how I decide to solve. And just like in coding, there's a lot of ways to do the same thing. And it's just a matter of how you prefer to do it. And oftentimes that's hard to decide. How do you do it? I tend to go with the fastest route first to get it working. And then I think about it, do I want to polish it more? So what was the problem first? The problem was that as it followed, it didn't work. Like people didn't see what was going on. So what happened is I had this script, and this is a network object. The spell, what it did is the head moves around, and you control it with your controller. So in here, I have a script that moves the head, but only the player that launches the spell owns the spell, and so they manipulate where it goes. And then the network transform does the logic to replicate it. Okay? And so that worked. But the problem was these other scripts, because then what I have is a tail that follows the next point. And oftentimes what would happen is that the script wouldn't work on the other player, on the client. So it would look very janky. And I'm still trying to improve this. Right now it's working. And that's the main thing. I wanted to make sure it works. And I'll show you what I mean by working. I have this trailer that I pulled up. Let me see if I can find it. And I'm going to try to show you where it's at. So towards the end, you'll see this? This is someone else looking at the dragon. And the dragon's going through. And see how it's like very janky still? But these bones are not networked. The way I have it set up is that it's all being done locally. Because as long as the head is where it needs to be, if the logic to follow the next point is the same, it doesn't have to be networked because every computer will do it the same. So if the head moves slower, it'll compute differently for the other player. But it's okay because it's just a visual. And the main thing is that the player that owns the spell is the one doing the damage. So that one's the one that has to be correct. But for the most part, it works fine. The problem that I'm having now is that it jitters. And so I might have to change it so that it's all networked, so that it all updates at the same time as it transforms. The other thing that I'm going to change is right now I'm updating the position, but these are parented. So I might not even update the position at all. I'll just leave it and update the rotation. So that way, all I'm doing is updating rotation, and these transforms don't get all wonky. That's one thing that might be not working. Okay, so that is the thing that was not working. So before, it wasn't even following. As you can tell right now, another player summoned the dragon, and he can see it, right? You see that? And see how you can see the trail end at the back? That's what I'm working on, is taking the opacity completely down to 0 so you can't see anything. And that is what I'm working on. And it still takes time. It's not finished. But I needed to get it so that you could get the idea of what was happening. And as we go back, let me show you what did I do to fix it. Well, the first thing is I have to figure out, okay, where am I going to do this update? And I used to have these movements right here, snake movement. And in this, I would update like a list of transforms and positions and clear it, and then constantly update the movement. And in here, see, I had these like snake movement in here. They constantly updated. So I decided to change that. I used Claude AI to help me come up with a better solution. Okay, so I said, okay, we're just gonna focus on the snake, the head, right? This is the head movement, okay, and it's based on your hand, your controller rotation. And if you summon it with your left, it uses your left, and if you summon with your right, it uses your right controller. Okay, so you could spawn two dragons in controller, or you could put two dragons in a row, and they'll be like kind of offset but parallel. They'll be the same. It just spawned offset. But that's it. That's all it's worrying about. Then what I did is I changed the script, and you can see I have different bullet versions. This is version 2 because version 3 didn't work. I have this dragon bone follower, and it has the follow delay, the smoothing factor, follow rotation, max distance, like how far behind to follow. At what point, like, is it not acceptable, or like just make sure it remains a certain distance. So what I'm going to change in here later is I'm just not going to update the position, and we're not going to worry about position, and we're just going to do rotation. But I have to like be careful. I can't. Oh, let me move myself. I can't do that. Just yeah. Okay. I have to take it piece by piece. I have a Git. I have a repository. I have plastic, and so I can change here. I can adjust. Right. I have a branch, and I can push my changes that work just in case. So I have a place to stop, and then if I mess up, I can delete. But I'm not there yet, so I don't want to do that yet. But this is working. The only thing is this is not networked, right? This is the same on both sides, and it's basically based on the next bone. So he says target to follow, and it'll follow that. So I'll have to do that. But this script fixed that. Now there's two things I need to fix. Is that can I get away with doing it with just rotation? Does that work? And then if not, it's like, okay, if I have to do it over the network, at least I'm just doing rotation, not both rotation and transform. So I have to figure that out. I have to test it, and I'll put a network transform and make sure it's updating and see if it works. If that works smoothly, then I'll figure out the way to do it the best way, the cheapest way possible. Okay, so this is a very expensive spell, but I wanted to try it out to see how much we could push the limit to things. So this week, the dragon is going to be a lot of work for me, and that's what I'm focusing on. But I wanted to show you kind of the thought process, right? Because things weren't working. It wasn't updating for other players. It was really wonky. And so I had to go in here and figure out, okay, what is wrong with this? Because it worked for me, but not for other players. And the logic was, the problem was this, all this behavior was in the others. And I had these marker managers. So these marker managers, you'll see, it's just doing it on fixed update network, and it's updating it, and it's just updating the position constantly. And so there was no delay, and it was it depended on the head a lot, and there were some problems with that. So that was the first thing. Okay, now the enemy. So the enemy wasn't updating and figuring out who to target. Okay, so I was like, okay, I have to go through. Let me pull up Fiverr, or not Fiverr. I mean Miro. So I can kind of go through a list or show you how I would go about it. Okay, so we have, let's see, a flying enemy. Okay, it wasn't detecting the player. So we have 1, 2. Like what could be going wrong? Like we have an area manager. Distance logic. So was the distance logic failing? Was player not detected? Wrong layer, maybe. I think that's pretty much what could have been. Okay, so I started with the area manager, because I have an area manager that's local. So this area manager will give me all the rigs. So this is for every player, regardless of who you are. The reason I do this is because the person who's the host might change midway through the game. So that way, every player has a list of all the players in the room. And this eventually is also used so the player can see who is there with them. So if I want to list all the players, if I want to mute them, I want to see who they are, or friend system, or yeah, all kinds of stuff we could do. But this is how it starts. Okay, we have an instance of this area manager as regular. It's not networked, and as people come in, they'll add the rig, and as they leave, they remove the rig. That's it. And then this is to get the list of all the rigs for the enemy. So the enemy is going to use this. The only problem with doing this is that the enemy has 100% vision, like regardless of where you're at. So then I have to create another logic for this is specifically for these enemies because I want them to know who's available first. And I can do a distance check after. But for now, again, like I said, I'm doing the fastest way possible for AI because I don't want to do like detection and figuring out where the player leaves and comes on and having all those problems. So instead, I say the enemy knows where everyone's at. And then we'll make it harder or different as we go. And I was like, okay, is this functioning, right? Is this working? And so I would log in, and that's why I have this public now. I made it public so I could see it. Is it filling out? Then I have to check the fusion rig, right? I have to go in here and follow the breadcrumbs. Like, is this happening? I have like, see, that's why I have this debug. And so I would make a build, I would test it on my headset and in the editor. I would hit play, and I would log in with my player, and I would say, okay, is this being detected? Yes or no? Let me go. Okay, so we have the area manager. And when I tested it, I realized, yes, it's happening. Okay, so where is the problem? And then, so what's next? Right, we have this mirror. Okay, so this is not the broken thing. We're done. It's the distance logic because we have a distance algorithm, or at least I made one that determines who's closest. Where is the? Okay, so let me go into the flying. So it says P flying high polished. So this is the final eyeball. And in here, there's a logic for the closest enemy. So in here, tag player, get closest player. So finding algorithm. So there's this find the closest player script. And the reason I made this script is so that if I wanted, and maybe I could change it. So like I'll say finding player algorithm. And then in there, you can choose which function to create. So this might be a different, I'm testing things out first. But if I wanted to expand this, I would say finding player algorithms and then have different functions in here, or an abstract class that you can modify. And so depending if you wanted to find the farthest enemy, the closest enemy, the target, like if someone aggravates me, someone hits me, it's like that guy I'm chasing, and different things that you could do. But for right now, this is just a find this closest player. And so if I wanted to use this for other enemies, I can just add this script and we're done. And we use the same algorithm. It already works. Okay, so find closest player. See, there's the get area manager, so it gets the rigs. And I was like, in here, like I'm trying to figure out, do we have two? Again, I was debugging because I was like, is this working? And it was working. Okay, so we have the rig, we have the distance, and in there I would debug and we get the closest player. Okay, and in here at some point I think I closed it, but there's I would print out the distance, but I think I figured it out before I started printing because I realized like this is giving me the rig. At first it had something like this. I'll show you. It said rig.transform.position. Okay, because that's a rig, right? That's where it is. The problem was that this thing wasn't moving. I'll show you. If I would have printed out debug log the distance of this, right? What is it called? Enemy position is this. Here's how I would debug it. I'm just letting you. I'll show you. And then rig or player. The rig position is, and maybe you'd get the name or something too, but I would put this out here to print out the different comparisons. So this would print out twice, 3 if there's 3 players and so on. So you could probably put like any position and player name. And I know there's a different way of you could use syntax for putting in the notes. I just used to doing it this way. Rig dot name, display name. So this and player name position is this. Okay, so this will print out the enemy position and the player that is comparing the position with, and that way I know, okay, like where are these positions? But before I even did this, I realized what was wrong, and I'm going to show you because I was looking. I was like, oh, that's where it's wrong. It's because I realized that this rig transfer positions, it's always the same where it's spawned, and that I needed the headset position because in the fusion rig, I'll show you. Fusion rig. Oh no, PR fusion rig. Okay, so in here, as you can, let me see if I can show you. So this rig, this is what's being populated or being shown. it's going to spawn it right here, the rig. And it's going to spawn this. And the problem with this is that this doesn't move anywhere. I'll show you what. This is taking the data from the local player and updating its position. So see in here, if it's local rig, state authority, we're going to apply these transform, the body, so the head position. So even the body is using the head because we only have the headset and the controllers that are updating. Those are the 3 transforms that we have to update the whole body. And so we have the body, we have the hands, we have the headset, position and rotation. Okay. These are what's moving. And so I could, yeah, so the main thing is this transform head. So up here, I have the public, local rig, and we have the headset right here is the transform. Okay. That is headset. That is what we have. Okay. We could put another transform if we wanted to, like if you wanted to do something else for detection. But I forgot about that, right? And in coding and stuff, I would accidentally forget that I had that in there. So to find this closest player in here, I realized that that was a mistake. And so let's go back to that so I don't the same mistake. And that's what I needed here. That was the first thing. So that made it so now the enemy actually worked for both players. Okay, so the find closest player will constantly find the closest player, and this will get the closest player. The VR fusion rig, and we have to get the headset transform in there again. Remember, because that's where the target is, the headset. And we could do the other thing we could do in here instead of storing the closest VR rig, we could do something else. But it's nice having the rig in case we needed to do other mechanics. Okay, so it's just reference in there. The other problem in here was the rotation. This rotation wasn't working. Like I had this pivot, rotation. We had this where it was in the fixed update, we were updating the rotation and it wasn't. So what I did is I created this on rotation change. Because when you have a network object, at least in Fusion, you have this variable that will sync the variable. So anytime you want to sync things based on a networked object, you do this. And so on rotation changed, it will rotate the pivot to that rotation. Now, if I wanted to be more I could just do a vector string instead of quaternion or whatever, less information for Euler angles and stuff. But for right now, I just need to get it working, right? So I have the rotation and on change, and this fixed that so that it would update for both. So this works now. The other thing that was not working was the spawning of the shooting mechanic. The shooting mechanic was spawning the projectile. But again, like what I always forget, like, and I do this still, and that's the thing, is I've done videos about this, but I still do it. That's why I say it's like these little things that you have to not worry about it. Don't freak out when you're having problems with your game in general, but even so, more so with multiplayers, to calm down, make a list, right? So we have here, we finish this, right? We flying enemy works. Okay, now the enemy bullet is not showing for client players or proxy players, whatever you want to call it. So is the bullet networked? And it is. Is spawning? And then you dive in like, why is it not showing in the right location? If all the answers are right, and you keep doing it, and sometimes you don't have the right question, you don't know what to ask, because until you get there, you don't know, right? Because it might be here. So there's no point in coming up with a list of all the things that could go wrong. I'm just saying you have to kind of think about the first few things that could go wrong and then go from there. And as you go closer, you're like, okay, this is happening, this is happening. What else could be going wrong? And so the enemy bullet, we have, and this was with the enemy. So P line enemy polished. And in here, I have the bullet right here, the enemy network bullet. If I go in here, it is network. You know, and when I went in here, I realized what the problem was. 2 seconds. It was this. It didn't have the network transform. So it was like this. Remove. So it didn't have the network transform. I'm like, wait. Oh, it was just a network transform. Because this is what it needs to update the transform. Because if I would have, and that's the difference between experience and not having experience. If you don't know this, what could be wrong? You still go through it, right? Like if I had got this, yes, is it spawning? And if I go, yes, but where is it, right? So if I go in the game, look, I'll show you. This is how I would do it. Loading. And you have to do it with multiple players. And that's what's hard, is that you have to test it out with multiple players. But I'll show you how I would do it and you'd have to imagine that I'm doing it with 2 players because I don't want to take up your time of putting my headset and whatnot. I want to show you a little bit how I would do it. Okay, so before this, if I didn't know what was wrong, right? Because sometimes after doing it a while, you spot, oh, rookie mistake. I forgot to do this, and I fix it in 2 seconds. But at the beginning of my journey, I didn't know what was going on. Okay, so in here you'll see. I'll show you the Fusion rig. See how it's over here, right here, and then the headset is over here where the actual rig is. So where this is doesn't matter, and that's why the distance formula wouldn't work regardless of where you were. So hopefully that makes sense. So the headset's there. So what I would do is in here, and this is again because I know what's going on, is that when a network transform spawns, it will spawn at the bottom of the list. So I'll show you how I would debug that. So I have my rig. I don't have an ideal scenario. Of what I would do is I would make a PC version that I can control with WASD. Eventually, I'll have one because I'll make a joystick version for players that don't want to do the gorilla tag movement. But for now, I just have this. Okay, so I move around. I'll trigger this, right? I'll trigger the network, and then I'll check. See how it shoots? So what I would do is I'll do this, and you see here, I paused the network bullets right there. So here's the bullet. And what I would do is in my headset, I would be the first player. I would log in, I would have the first player, and then I would have the Unity editor come in second because I want to test this. And then I would spawn, I would check it, and it will probably be at 0-0, right? And then I'm like, oh, why is it not spawning where the other player sees it? And it's because it doesn't have the network transform. That's all. Okay. I could also manually update the position since I don't need to do the rotation. It's very weird because Fusion, well, they are trying to be efficient with the network transform. So instead of having you do a bunch of stuff, they do it for you. But the one thing that they're going to want to network is the position and rotation. And I don't know if they do something better than what we would do in our scenario. But if you wanted to just do position and don't care about rotation, then you can do it on your own. And you can even be more efficient by cutting down on digits and stuff if you wanted to. But that's the gist of it. And then after this, it would break because it disconnected because the pause option. But that's it. That's what I did. And also I did other debugging and stuff. But that's how I go about it. I do a list. I do it with pen and paper. I'm like, okay, these things are the things that are wrong. Let's go one at a time. So I grab one, I fix it. I test it. It's fixed. Okay, let's move to the next one. And you just have to relax, calm down, make a list, and tackle everything one by one. And if I have a list of 10 things I have to fix, and it takes 10 days, okay, that's what it takes. And if I want to do it in 5 days instead, then I do 2 things a day, right? And if you finish with those 2 things faster, then you can move on to the next. And it's all very mundane, but it's pretty doable. It's not a big deal. So debugging, yes, it can get intensive and hard, but that's what I'm trying to teach and share with you is that you have to calm down, write it down, and think logical. And it doesn't help just, I don't know, and just posting it online. But being able to walk through what's working and what's not, and it's part of the gig, is the work. And it's okay to ask. And eventually you'll get used to it. And sometimes some things we don't understand, so we don't even know what questions to ask. And so that's why it's important to, when you're posting about problems, you have to say, you have to be very clear about what's going on because people don't know your code. So as you explain what's going on, people say, oh, did you do this? Or they need more context. And so it's really hard to just say, hey, this is not working. Why is it not working? Well, like, what's going on? Let's walk through it. And the more you do that, and even if you use ChatGPT or Claude or an AI agent, you can say, hey, why is this not working? And AI will probably ask you more things like, okay, what is it that's not working? What is it that you're expecting, the behavior, and things like that. And the more, I think that's the other thing is that as you try to explain what's going on, you'll realize the logic and where the flaw might be. And sometimes we cause ourselves more trouble by making things more complicated than they have to be. Sometimes they don't have to be as complicated as we think it. We'll see. Hopefully this works. If you need specific help with your game, just putting a comment about it is not enough. I have my community, Endgame Devs, where I help developers one-on-one. And we go over this. And if you need debugging through, we step through whatever you're in need of. That's why we have that community, is to help you one-on-one with your project and your specific needs. If you like this, let me know. We'll see you next time.